What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to the To Go Show. We're your hosts, Miriah and Steph. Steph, happy Thursday. Good to see you again. How you doing?
Good to be here. I'm hot. I mean, we are just talking about the fact that we had some fans going on in the background. You know, my AC hasn't been working
No.
for the past couple of weeks, and we've hit 90 degrees outside. So the fan is telling me that it's 84 degrees in this room. Where I record is the hottest room in the apartment. So not fun, but we're still locked in. We're still rocking here.
Yeah, that's miserable. I feel you. I'm in the hottest room of the house too. Like, I don't know how this seems to work out. My air is working, but it doesn't work well enough to keep up with the Las Vegas heat, unfortunately. So it's officially 110 at least outside, with the temps still rising for today. So yeah, of course it's going to be hot as crap in here too. But you know, we're goats. We're used to being out in the heat, so it don't matter. We can survive. Chat, what's up? Hope everybody's doing well. Good to be back. Good to see everybody. Hope everybody's had a great couple weeks. A lot's happened since I've seen you, since I've even talked 49ers pretty much tons of shit's happened. But something very interesting has been happening for like the last week or so. Somebody that is usually a mouthpiece for the 49ers has maybe been leaving some breadcrumbs around. I'm going to play a little clip. Then I want to get your thoughts on this. Let me share screen here. See what our friend Maddie has to say over here. Because when Matt talks, I don't know. I always got to listen a little more carefully than normally I would be listening. So let's see what he had to say. This was today. And look, retweeted it. Beating this drum a lot in the last week. So that's why I definitely wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Oh, this one just feels a little bit different because, you know, they've already paid all these guys, and at some point the money or the cap space just kind of runs out. And when you have a team full of really good players, you know, teams can't keep everybody, and you know, you just kind of wonder what's going to happen with Brandon Aiyuk. I mean, do they really want to pay him the going rate for wide receivers? Or do they think that maybe that money could be allocated in other areas? Bracing, I guess, for Brock Purdy's big contract. But, you know, this offseason, you know, they did re-sign Juwan Jennings to a 2-year deal. They did draft Ricky Pearsall in the first round, and they still have Deebo Samuel for this year, next year. So it'd just be really interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. And it's entirely possible that they don't sign him to a long-term contract and they let him play out the final year of his deal and then just kind of see where it goes from there. Maybe, you know, kick the can down the road a little bit.
All right. So, Steph, you said that Maddie there has been leaving a little trail of some little tidbits around. Why don't you talk to me about what you have put together, what else you have seen, heard, and what you think this all means? Because obviously we just saw CMC get paid. Do we see the 49ers pay them both? All these people. I'm starting to get nervous. You guys know me as a huge Brandon Aiyuk fan. I've tried to stay confident this whole time. I'm starting to get nervous. Talk to me, Steph.
All right. Well, this actually all kind of started with a tweet that Mike Silver put out a couple of days ago as well. And Miriah, I'm going to just like give you the layup here to share that as well. It just in case anyone is blocked like me. So This is Mike Silver's tweet where he kind of lays out just what the 49ers options are with their receivers, and kind of similar tune to what Matt Maiocco was saying. He says, one, they drafted Pearsall in the first round. Two, if Aiyuk ends up taking their best offer, Debo will be gone after 2024. Three, if Aiyuk doesn't take their best offer, he could play on the 5th-year option. It's Hunger Games between him and Debo to see who stays beyond 2024. And 4, there's still a chance either one of those guys could be traded between now and the November deadline. This pretty much falls in line with everything that Maiocco has said in the last week as well. And for anyone keeping track on that, he's mentioned it in 2 consecutive 49er Talk episodes now, and now he's saying it on the radio live. So as we know, like he is more plugged in, I think, than most people. I think Mike Silver is as well, as far as the information they get. Now, based on Mike Silver's tweet, like the way that it reads to me is that the 49ers have made their best offer, basically. That's kind of what it sounded like. Because number 2 was if Aiyuk ends up taking their best offer, it kind of just sounds to me like it's already on the table and the 49ers aren't really willing to, negotiate beyond that for anything more. Aiyuk, of course, trying to get a little bit more out of that. Now, I would also say that, there's still a lot of time here, but I think this might be even just a reminder to Brandon Aiyuk and his representation, a very subtle way of saying, hey, we have all the leverage here. These are all our options. You only have one, basically, or 2. I mean, you can either take this contract or play on your 5th-year option. Like, that's really it. And in both cases, I think for Aiyuk, if it's not the amount that he wants, and the second option being he plays on his 5th-year option, like those aren't great options for him because anything can happen on that 5th year. He can get hurt. Like there's a lot of risk involved in that as well for the players. So 49ers maybe not so subtly reminding Brandon Aiyuk and his reps of that. It could be what this is. It could also be that there are some tea leaves of, the 49ers not, giving Aiyuk his big money contract. But of course, I think that's within their parameters. Like they would only do it if it's in, if he accepts this offer. If not, like, I think they're fine. So it just kind of feels like that's where they're at in the negotiations, that maybe there's just a bit of a standoff between those two sides, little game of chicken. Yeah, the 49ers they have the leverage.
Yeah, this comment right here hinges on Pearsall, how he looks. It's funny because as all this Aiyuk stuff is coming out, we're also hearing, and you hear in the press conferences and whatnot, they're being asked about him and, oh, this is the best I've seen a wide receiver look since yada yada. Oh, he's looking great out there. And it's like, is he really like tearing it up out there? Are you guys exaggerating to make this Aiyuk stuff like I don't know. Like it's just so hard to know what to believe right now. Like, are the 49ers feeding, like you said, we know that Silver and Matt are both close to the 49ers, right? Silver sometimes just goes totally left field though, and who knows? I'm still waiting for the splash move to be made and all this stuff from free agency. So who knows? But like I told you, when Matt speaks or when Matt says something or when Matt puts out a tweet, I just try to pay a little bit more close attention to it. And you guys know me, my memory is not so good. So I try to fit it into this memory of mine and hang on to it because we know the 49ers put info out through him, and like you said, are the 49ers saying like, okay, we made our best offer, you take it, you leave it, I don't know. Oh my God. But then because
we stressing Miriah out over here.
How the 49ers always do their big contracts. They wait to the last minute. All this shit we talked about all off season. But yet we're watching them all off season this off season just hand out money to the one guy. Next guy walks up, they hand out money to him. Next guy walks up, hand out money to him. CMC's like, I'm not showing up. Okay, we'll hand out some money to you. And meanwhile, like if you guys see my thumbnail, that's exactly how I feel like Aiyuk in this situation. He just there sitting in the corner watching everybody else get paid at the party, like, hey, don't worry about me. I'm just working out over here with my tree. Like,
and on baseball fields.
Yeah. Like the whole time I'm watching that video on the baseball field, I'm like, please don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt.
Right,
Please don't get hurt. Like, this is just so stressful. This is so stressful for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I would just be so sick to my stomach if I watched him go to another team and just light it up and be like the number one stud somewhere else. Like, I'd be happy for the guy. Don't get me wrong. Like, I want to see him get his bag and all that. But, like, oh my God, I'd be upset. Like, out of all people, this is the guy that you wouldn't pay. I don't know. I don't know if it's just like me being the Aiyuk fan. I'm just hanging on to this because I want to, or if this is just really like, I don't know if it's my brain or my heart leading me to think this, but I still think it's Deebo that gets moved.
But when would that happen? I think like if either of them got moved, it would be mid-season, and it would have to be if the 49ers are having a bad season, right? Because if they're having a good season, you roll with the guys you have that you've been having success with and you've been winning games with. You don't mess that up, right? So, and I think it would have to be a pretty dramatic, like, bad season, for them to consider that.
I think it could still be next season. We could still keep them both for this season. If God forbid something happens and we lose somebody and we could trade Deebo for a player, I don't think they're trading him from now until, like the trade deadline for a draft pick for next season. Like, that's just stupid. Like, unless you said the team just totally a shit pile of shit out there, but I can't see that happening. Right. So it would have to be for a player. I've said this since the draft ended, that if they make a move, it has to be for a player. It's the only thing that would make sense if you plan to get to the Super Bowl and win it this season. But I still think that they could hang on to them both for this season and move Deebo in the off season after this year.
Yeah, they could definitely afford that, especially, honestly, the deals for Juwan Jennings and Christian McCaffrey opened up more cap space for this season and the next. So they could afford to pay him, but, of course, we know that has implications maybe later down the line. We talk about Deebo being like the low-hanging fruit for a guy that, if BA gets his deal, Deebo's probably out next season, next off season. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot to consider for the 49ers. And I think that's part of the reason why they're kind of dug in their heels a little bit as far as their best offer, right? And they don't want to move off of that because that could compromise even more if they accept what Brandon Aiyuk is wanting.
Yeah. Leon brings up a good point here. I like this idea, actually. And something I hadn't thought of, even knowing that he was a wide receiver turned running back, says, just saying, Grindo is a wide receiver turned running back. He could develop into a wide back in a year or two. What would you think about that idea?
Yeah, I think, like, while the wide back position has been cool, I'll just say that I think Deebo is like the perfect guy for that role. And a lot of people think, well, we could just put any guy that has done both in there and have our own Deebo. Never works out that way because there's no one like Deebo. And also say this, like, I think the team is maybe wanting to move off of like having a wide back at a certain point in the past, it felt like more of a necessity to have Debo in that role.
With Jimmy, she's meaning.
You're exactly, yeah, like your quarterback somewhat limited, but you still need to get yards. So having a guy like Debo was like perfect at that time. Whereas now, you have Brock Purdy, a guy who could push the ball down the field. He's willing to do that. I think they're wanting to surround him with like true wide receivers, guys who could get open, who can run routes and are good against man coverage. So I feel like, once Debo is gone, that's probably the end of a wide back position in San Francisco. I just see kind of a changing of the tide a little bit.
It's funny because I had this guy on the list to talk about for a different reason, but I love this. Shout out to Leon again for this comment. Says, is it just me? Mustafa looks like Whitner. He's 5'10", 207. Whitner, 5'10", 208. Both lay the boom, and the film looks similar too. If now that's some big shoes to fill and a big if. The sizes, everything great. And this is my favorite draft pick. I love this kid so far. Like, obviously we got to see it translate to NFL, right? But if he could be what Whitner, anything close to what Whitner was, but do it in today's NFL without getting a flag thrown every freaking tackle, like, oh my God, that would be amazing. Like, that's all we could hope for and wish for right now. What do you think about that comparison? Because this guy, I swear, reminds me like of a wrecking ball.
Yeah, I did see that comparison a lot, like when the 49ers did draft him. I think it makes sense. I mean, they're the size is very similar. And so it does give you some confidence in Mustafa, because I think, you look at his size and you feel like that's the one downside to his game, although he's built, right? Like the thing he can't control, like how tall he is and, all that, but he can control how big he is. And he really leaned into that. Right. So now he is like a little wrecking ball out there. And I don't know, I want to call him the muscle hamster. Doug Martin didn't like that name, but Malik Mustafa looks like a muscle hamster, So I want to give him that name.
That's crazy.
If he would take it. But I think it's fitting. And yeah, as Hines says too, he's built like a linebacker. Yeah. And if you look at his skill set as well, it is very like linebacker-esque in that I think his best skill sets, like he fits best somewhere in the box, somewhere where he's coming like downhill, similar to Hufanga in that sense, where he could move quickly sideline to sideline type. As far as like him, being deep as a safety, I don't know if that's like his best game, but he looks like a linebacker. He kind of plays like a linebacker as well. So yeah, I'm excited about him, and I know some of the vets were singing his praises from OTAs. So I'm sure you're going to talk about that next. So I don't want to step on your toes. I'll give you the segue.
I'm not, but we can go to that next. What I was going to throw in here about him was about his mom actually putting out tweet that's going around. And she put out a tweet saying, for those that haven't seen it, says, getting a divorce is tough. Divorcing, and she tags the Dallas Cowboys after 48 years and now faithful to the Bay at 49ers. Now, those that had heard, Mustafa's press conference, where they asked him about being a 49ers fan, he had spoke about that the reason he became a 49ers fan was because all of his family were Cowboys fans and he wanted to go against them. So he became a 49ers fan. So the fact that his mom puts out a tweet now after 48 years, of course, you have to go to the team that your kid's on, even if it's your favorite team's rival or one of, so much history between the two teams. We now have Mama Mustafa. I don't know what her last name's different, but a part of the faithful. So I just wanted to say welcome. I put out a tweet. I'm like, your son is awesome. We already love him, a fan favorite before even getting on the real freaking field. And part of that reason is because he was a 49ers fan. Like, I love when that happens. So yeah, shout out to them. Steph, I was going to ask you, and so if you want to talk about him as a part of this, what just your overall thoughts, what your biggest takeaways were from minicamp?
So far, it seems like so far it's the last day of minicamp. I guess Ricky Pearsall, I have not heard one bad thing about him. Like, not even like a lukewarm thing about him. Like, everything has been a glowing review. And I don't think, you're kind of speculating earlier, Miriah, that maybe that's just people talking to like soften the blow of the Brandon Aiyuk deal not having happened yet. Not happening yet, or I don't know. But, I do think like he is actually looking good, because I'm seeing people who don't just like, glaze these players and say good things. Like Tim K, for example, he's one who's going to be, really honest. I feel like Grant has even like come around. I know like in that first rookie minicamp, he was a little critical, but he didn't catch any passes. I don't think that was really Ricky's fault based on what everyone else was saying from that day. And just in general, I just feel like people who are generally like pretty objective have been impressed with him. I mean, even Kyle coming out, and I mean, of course he was asked about Ricky, but to just be so complimentary of him this soon, I think tells me it's real. Because usually like Kyle with the rookies, he won't like, give them much praise. Yeah, he's real tough to impress, but to this point, it seems like he has been. And so it looks like he's confident, he's fitting right in. In the last 49ers talk, Jennifer Lee Chan said she saw that he already has a handshake with Debo. Like, dude's already like part of the team, like that. And I think that's the part of the rookie transition that a lot of people overlook, that may be difficult for players, like just kind of integrating into a new team and having that like confidence that you belong. It seems like Ricky's like, he's already there, and on top of that, he's looked good as a receiver and getting open and all that. The other thing, Renardo Green, haven't heard one bad thing about him either. I think the only knock on him so far is that he could get handsy, which we already knew, right? Like that was something he struggled with, in college, drawing some penalties. As I've predicted, like I think he's going to have an adjustment period with that. But I think he'll adjust, right? Like right now, because it works for him and it doesn't get called, like, he's going to continue doing it if he could get away with it. But there's a lot of corners in the league who actually could get away with it. Like, I don't know. I know we always felt like when Richard Sherman, for example, was a Seahawk, like we felt like he was kind of handsy at times. But it's like, if you don't get called for it, like some guys could just hide it better than others, I guess. So maybe that's what Renardo Green could work on. But yeah, it seems like those two guys have been as advertised, as in they're pro ready, right? And we're seeing it right away. And there hasn't been a big learning curve. And like Nick Sorensen, speaking about Renardo Green, even mentioned that they're putting a lot on his plate and he's not even like shying away from it. He's like, no, like, give me more. Like, that's awesome. I love to hear that. And for the top two picks for the 49ers, like, those are the kind of things you better be hearing about them. And we are. So I think it's great.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about a couple things that some of the guys said in their press conference. One, let's start with Fred Warner. He was asked about which linebacker has impressed the most. And I thought it was good to hear, because we've been wondering, like, what are these young guys going to come in and look like? Do they have even a chance to be competing for that Greenlaw spot? Like the third spot, like what's going on at linebacker behind Fred right now? And Fred says, D Winters He says he's had the best OTAs on the team, he said. Not just, like with the new guys or whatever. He says on the team. He said he came in great shape. He's on it. He's making plays left and right. So I thought that was good to hear, that Fred said like you could tell he's put in the work since they've been gone. Obviously, once this is done, they have 90 days. He said as long as he goes out, puts in more work, that he has a real good chance, I think we know, obviously, that Fred is well media trained, right? But he could have said anything about any of the guys, and that's the only guy he mentioned. He could have said, oh, he's having a good camp. He didn't have to say nothing about having the best camp OTAs out of everybody on the team. Right. And I really love that because obviously we know Fred's guys, Dre Greenlaw, right? But we need Fred to be instilling the confidence in these young guys because they have big shoes to fill. Like whoever takes over that spot, whether it's Campbell, whether it's one of these young guys, they got big shoes to fill. And I love that Fred is getting up there and saying, yeah, like my dude's, he's in there making plays, he's in there putting in work. And as long as he continues to work, he'll be good, so I really loved hearing that. And then he was asked about the coach situation with Staley and Nick. And he said that Nick was born for this role. He's a natural born leader. He said you could see that from when he was doing the move the ball periods, in the previous years. He said that he's doing a great job. And then he said Staley's been awesome. He's been picking his brain. I love this because he said that Staley's not afraid to call him out in the meetings. And he said that, they'll be watching tape from last season. And if Staley sees that Fred, screwed something up, he's not afraid, I'm not going to say nothing because that's our star linebacker, no, you did something wrong. I'm going to call you out just like I'm going to call out the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. Right. So I loved to hear that, that Staley already knew with this team. And he's like, I'm the coach, I'm going to come in and I'm going to say I don't care. Right. So that was awesome. And what did he say? Yeah. So then he said that he's got a lot of respect for both guys. He did go on to ask, I don't know, I just felt like they were trying to get him to talk maybe about the last DC a little bit. And like I said, Fred's so well media trained that you could ask him any question, he's going to turn it to the best possible answer. So I don't know why they even try, but what did you think about anything that Fred had to say when he was up there?
I didn't get to catch all of Fred's presser, but I think it bodes well the things that have been said about Nick Sorensen so far, because I know it wasn't just Fred that was complimentary of him in these couple of days where we had players talking to the media. And I forgot who said it of the defensive players, but someone else said he has more of a D'Amico style. And by that, I was actually a little surprised because I was like, okay, his energy to me doesn't come off as the same type, but I also don't know what kind of coach he is. Really, these players know he could be a completely different guy on the podium than he is as a coach. And I think that is the case, especially because that first presser that Nick Sorensen had, he looked very shy. He looked very reserved. He almost didn't want to say the wrong thing. So he didn't say much at all. The second presser already of Nick Sorensen was a complete 180. You could just tell he felt a little more comfortable. He was cracking jokes. So we got better. Okay. Yeah. Better. Yes. Good. I mean, he passed the Miriah test. So that says a lot right there. But yeah, I mean, I think we're starting to see, I guess, what kind of guy and coach he is to these players, because we're hearing so much about it, and the personality started to break through a little
Mhm.
bit in with the media.
Yeah, he definitely looked a lot more comfortable this go around. He even started like with a little joke, like, "Okay, you guys got
Mhm.
anything? No, okay, like I'm out of here." Like kind of reminded me of like what Mike McDaniel would do. Kind of like that. Um, and then yeah, you could tell he was just more open to talking. Like he was answering stuff a lot better. He just a lot more confident. Um, Let me talk to you about Charvarius a little bit. So it was revealed that this injury that he had surgery for in the offseason, that he's had that over 4 years. He said back to his days in
Mhm.
Kansas City. So he's been playing with this core injury, right? And he said that it just has gotten worse and worse and worse over time, which I found was pretty crazy because he said there was at a point where, and I know this from firsthand experience how this feels, that if he was sitting in the car too long or driving or even just sitting down, that his back would start hurting him so bad. And he's like, I'm in my 20s and I'd be feeling like I'm in my 40s. And he's like, the pain just got so bad that I had to have surgery. Like I couldn't do it. And like you think back, like look back on the season that Travarius Ward had this past season. His best with the 49ers, probably in his career. And to know that he's doing that and playing through like injury to your core, like to your back, to everything right here, like
Yeah, that's tough.
is crazy. So like to know that he had that kind of season while dealing with all that, right? Now we know that he said he'll be back by training camp. He's feeling great. So I don't know if he's fully healthy, but we'll say he's healthy, at least from this situation, right? He's going to be in a contract year unless something gets done between now and the start of the season. When asked if what he wants to do, what he wants from himself this coming up season, he said he wants to become a better leader, more of a talker. He wants to capitalize on his missed opportunities. He said that he could have had at least 10 interceptions last year. He said he's now the old head in the DB room. So he emphasized again that he wants to become a better leader. And then just said he wants to make more plays and be better than he was last year. What do you think that we see from Charvarius Ward this season?
I mean, that's crazy because I feel like that's a high bar, right? Like he was so great last season, and like you said, the fact that he was doing that with like this core muscle injury, getting to like a tipping point, like I mean, he looked really good, probably the best he's looked with the 49ers since he's been here. I think part of that has to do with the defense sort of shifting towards more like secondary focus. Like it felt like last year it was kind of starting that way, and then like the emergence of Lenore as well, I think has helped like just the entire secondary. But yeah, that's a high bar. I mean, if he could do it, that'd be great. The 49ers would love that. Especially interceptions, right? Like you can never have too many takeaways. And I almost wonder if that's maybe part of the reason that the 49ers want to move Lenore back to the outside, because they're going to have to choose between one of those two guys, moving forward, who's going to get that extension. 2024 is going to tell us who's going to get that extension. And it could be that one guy prices himself out. Like it could be one of them has such a good season that it's like, damn, we can't even keep him anymore. We can't afford to. Or it could just be like, hey, this guy was great. He's good enough, and we can afford to keep him. I don't know. It's an interesting dynamic, right? Like how that'll go. But yeah, I think both of those guys, as of right now, I feel like they're both deserving of extensions. But having them both on the outside, I think gives them a better idea of like it's an even competition. Because like I don't feel like Lenore, for example, had as many opportunities at getting interceptions as like maybe Mooney Ward did. Yeah. Just because, for the most part, when they're on like nickel downs, he's man in the slot. So maybe this year we'll see a bit of a change there for Lenore. But yeah, it's going to be a battle between both of those guys. And I feel like that's the best case scenario for the 49ers, honestly. Just two guys knowing that this is the last year of their contracts and knowing only one of them could remain on the team.
Yeah, he was asked, like about his contract situation, and he said, that he wants to stick around. He said, they love me, I love them. He said, but I'm going to go out and ball and hope they give me a bag. He's like, but if not, he's like, no bad blood. He's like, I understand, so it's definitely going to be interesting because I'm a huge Lenore fan, so I would definitely, if it comes down to out of the two, and Lenore continues to have, obviously doesn't have like a fall off season this season. He's the younger guy. He's our guy that we drafted. I would just rather love to see him paid. And I just feel like with this being Charvarius's probably last, paid, big payday that he probably can collect on. If he does set out to have the type of season that he is talking about, you talked about it, if one guy pricing himself out, I could definitely see that happening. It's definitely going to be interesting. It's a good problem to have because you always want guys fighting to earn money. That's when you get the best out of them, it seems. So this is interesting. Invader says, I think Green and Luter Jr. are your starting outside cornerbacks next year. So that means neither of those two guys get paid from the 49ers.
I think at least one of them does. I still think that. But, I mean, Luter, we haven't really seen him, right? Nope. If he looks great, let's just say he's looking as good as Renardo Green. Let's just say, hypothetically. Then, I don't know, maybe you do kind of roll with that. But I think we need to see more from Darrell Luter to really, I think, make that decision. And again, it's going to come down to the entire season, that whole body of work.
Yeah. So I haven't got your thoughts on, I kind of talked to it briefly about it earlier, about the CMC contract extension raise, payday. We did get to hear from him too. I thought it was hilarious that the first clip that the 49ers share of him talking about that he's so excited for his payday, he didn't even smile one single time. And they're like,
no, at the podium. I feel like he doesn't. No. He's so serious. Mm-hmm. He's always locked in.
Yeah, but he's like, yeah, I'm so fired up to be here. I'm so excited. And just his face is straight the whole time. Dang, you don't look like a guy just got how much ever millions deposited into your bank account, but
I'd be smiling.
Right. I wouldn't stop smiling the entire time when I was up there, and I would never get off the podium. I'd be talking about my money all day long. Real quick though, before you give me your thoughts on him, they asked him about Bobby Turner, and he said, about him and his conversations, when he was coming out in the draft and all that. But something when it comes to the payday, he said that Bobby Turner is someone that plays a huge role in this extension. And they also asked him, because we've heard about all the contact Bobby's had with Isaac since, before the draft and since he's got drafted and all that. They asked CMC as well about Bobby's contact, if that contact stops, once you're, a part of the team and whatnot. And he says that he has constant contact always with him. And I just started thinking, I'm like, man, Bobby Turner, I wish that we could put a bottle of no age serum or something to him, because man, it's gonna we barely lost him for what, a half of a season, and I felt like the running game freaking fell apart and was barely dangling on by one thread, and I'm just so sad to lose him when we do. But give me your thoughts on the whole CMC contract, everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely deserved, right? And of course, we were speculating as to why he wasn't there, but I think in the back of our minds, we all knew that he had every reason to ask for more money right now, guaranteed money. And I think the 49ers absolutely made the right decision in giving him extra years on his extension as well. So now he's going to be a Niner till I think 31, right? So 2027. I mean, I love that. Christian McCaffrey's too good of a player to just like not want to keep as long as you can. You know, he's a generational player, I think, and yeah, I think he was definitely deserving. We know how much he means to this team, how valuable he is to this team, not just as a running back. He was already the highest paid running back, but I think we know he absolutely deserved to get paid more based on the many hats that, you know, he can wear for this offense and just the sheer volume that he handles within this offense as well. You compare his impact to other players on the team, some other guys who have gotten the extensions or other guys that are set to get extensions. And I think you look at it and you're like, Christian's more valuable than any of these guys. And yet he got this extension and it still feels like a steal. And when you look at it that way, right? So I think, yeah, happy for him. Definitely more than deserved. Just happy he's going to be a Niner for a long time.
Yeah, you know, it's funny that you talk about that, you know, looking at his production and comparing it with people that have gotten paid and people that are waiting to get paid. Because I have this tweet pulled up right here, and this is like really what made me start like kind of getting worried about the Brandon Aiyuk situation, because although we know positions are valued and paid differently, right? So the wide receiver market is what it is. It's higher than the running back market, unfortunately. But when you look at this, you know, thing saying that CMC is averaging 19 million a year, and you think to the rumors that are out there that Brandon Aiyuk could be asking for 30 million plus a year, right? And then, you know, this is from Adam Schefter had said, the 49ers once traded second, third, fourth, and fifth round picks to Carolina for Christian McCaffrey. In 22 total games with San Francisco, McCaffrey has totaled 2,711 rushing yards, 1,241 receiving yards, and 39 total touchdowns.
It's crazy.
And then you're going to tell me they're going to turn and hand a wide receiver in a run-first offense more money than that. I don't know, Steph. That's what makes me worried here, because that mixed with the Matt shit, like, oh, stressful. This is a stressful time in my life, guys. I just want you to know. Damn it, Aiyuk!
We need that already.
So yeah, but like when you look at those numbers, like regardless of anybody else's payday or not, to look at those numbers and think, I'll continue to go back to, you know, ESPN or whoever the dumbasses are grading the 49ers trade for CMC a C-. And you look at that and it's just like, in 22 games, like how does one person put up over 2,700 rushing yards and over 1,200 receiving yards? Like, it's just crazy to think, like, you know, one guy has that much output.
I mean, he gets so much fun. Like, he gets the ball, like, and I'm just making a number up, but it feels like 80% of the time.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's touching the ball one way or another. So, and that's what I'm talking about. We're just value alone. Like, he is so valuable. You look at the 49ers being able to keep Christian McCaffrey and, you know, Brock Purdy, assuming, like, you know, that all that goes well too. I mean, the window could stay open just with those two guys. Like, I think, like, for that to be the new foundation of your team, I mean, it feels pretty good to me, right? Like, it feels like you're set. That's a pretty strong foundation you could build off of.
Yeah. Like obviously we know what has stopped CMC in the past, right? Is himself, his own body not working correctly, getting hurt, right? So, but I mean, as long as that guy stays healthy, and this is where I need Kyle, just like I know you just paid him more money, but can you just take a little bit like off his plate? Like, we don't need him to continue to do all this. Like,
I mean, Kyle talked about that. He said, like, we gotta save him from himself, or protect him from himself. I mean, they have a duty in that too. The thing is, it's like, we know it's easier said than done. And we know there's no player on this team like Christian McCaffrey who guarantees you the production that he gives you. So look at it this way, and I'm putting it in terms that we'll understand because, you know, some of us play Madden. If you know you have a guy or like a play that gets you like 3-5 yards every time, guaranteed, why wouldn't you do, you know, why wouldn't you just continue doing it? So that's the difficult part. It's easy to say like, yeah, like we gotta dial his carries back, but once you're in the heat of a game and it's like you gotta move the ball, I want Christian McCaffrey to have the ball, and I think Kyle does too. So that's a difficult part.
Yeah, I think that's too where like Kyle needs to be smarter about the usage, where like I know, like obviously we know what happens when we were up a bunch and he went and he pulled the entire team and the freaking team comes back on us, right? Like I'm not saying that, but like when you got a guy like this and we have capable running backs stacked behind him, like there comes a time when you need to start putting in your younger guys and let Christian rest for the game. Like there should be no reason why we're up a couple touchdowns and CMC is still touching the ball every single play, down in and down out. Yeah, like exactly. That's the shit that pisses me off, because then he gets hurt and it's like, for what? You know? 100%. So yeah, anything else that you want to talk about? Well, really quick, when I was watching Fred Warner's presser, now it's been maybe 3 years, 2 or 3 years since I've seen him like in person, like shook his hand and stuff in person.
Oh, nice.
So like,
were you as tall as him?
I think
we know you're tall as hell. You guys are the same height.
I think we're close.
That's
I don't think he was that much taller.
We need to get you on the field, Miriah.
When I was watching his presser, like he's wearing a tank top or a whatever shirt, you know, like you could see his arms. And like he looks bigger, like already from last season, like huge, his arms. And I'm thinking, like, did he like, is this because like a baby was born and you gotta stay your ass home, you can't be doing nothing else, so you're just there working out? Is your wife started working out again, so this is that? Like you didn't want to get a dad bod, so you've been hitting the gym harder? I don't know, but that guy looks built. Like, and I'm just so impressed with this guy. Like, you know, he was talking about how he's one of the only guys, obviously we know, that has a house there. He lives there 24/7. He works out at the facility all year round with the training staff all year round. And he's one of the guys that continues to stay healthy all year round. All these other guys
gotta knock on wood for that.
Train here, train there, train in Florida, train here. You know, that's why I call him Iron Man Fred, because he's such a stud. Colleen, you talk about your body already feels like you're 45. Mine feels like I'm 95. So I could not even bend down to pick up the fucking ball. Okay, like, be real. Let's be real here. I have a better chance dunking a basketball, probably.
Okay, let's see that then.
But yeah, anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna make a joke that, you know, Fred probably saw Malik Mustafa come into the building. He was like, no, I'm not about to, you know, concede biggest muscles to a rookie, you know. And, you know, Nick's pretty built too, so he's got some competition. There's competition for most jacked. And it looks like, you know, Fred wants to keep things interesting.
Nick, I also noticed legs, for sure.
Yeah. I also had noticed that, like, you noticed the shirt. It was like a cutoff shirt. It literally looked like he cut the shirt himself. It was all like jaggedy. And I'm like, dude, do the 49ers not have like tank tops that they can like give them? Like, I know they have the, the tank top version because Nick wears them all the time.
He's like,
so,
don't worry.
I don't know. I just thought it was funny. He literally cut himself a shirt. Like, I don't know.
Our star linebacker, and he got to be back there sewing his own clothes.
See, like he's taking on crafts now because he's a dad. So in between, carrying the baby, or maybe he's lifting the baby. He's doing bicep curls with the baby. Who knows?
Probably his baby and wife in one hand like this. Switches.
Oh my gosh.
Anything else you got plans? What else you got going on?
Nothing planned. I guess I got to figure out what kind of content I want to put out in these like 40 days before training camp, right? It's going to be a little, I hope that we have at least a Brandon Aiyuk deal or some Brandon Aiyuk news to talk about.
Don't you dare say Brandon Aiyuk news.
In this slow period. It could be good news, Miriah. It could be like, hey,
they're getting close. The deal. That was it.
They're getting close. That's a big goal right there that I could do. So hopefully we get some stuff, during that 40 days.
40 days and 40 nights. Gonna be a long time. I'll be back. Me and TL, he's been on vacation for 2 weeks, so he is back. We're doing our show tomorrow. Ooh, what time? Let me see. I think maybe 3. Let me let y'all know. Oh no, not even close. Tomorrow at 4:30 Pacific time. Me and TL will be going live. So yeah, come through. We'll be doing giveaways, all that fun jazz. Make sure that you are liked, subscribed to both channels. Steph and I greatly appreciate each and every one of you that came through, that hung out with us, that come through, watch the replay, all that good stuff. Me and Steph will be back next week. Same time, same place. We're out of here, faithful.
Peace.